Welcome to the LG Wheelhouse. I'm your host, SirMikeKnight. With me, as always, is Hutch. And how you guys doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Doing great. I'm doing great, especially since we have this huge announcement. We're not going to make everybody wait. Hutch, tell them what it is.
All right, guys. So tonight I'm here to announce that the Wheelhouse will be the official host of the Season 21 AHL Award Show. So I'm not exactly sure when the show will air. I'm assuming that it will probably occur sometime after this week's Calder Cup final. But I will point out that the awards are not decided on by us here at the Wheelhouse. And we'll likely have a Board of Governors member or a member of the awards committee to join us and reveal each of the award winners. So I think this is a pretty big announcement for us here at the Wheelhouse. And, personally, I think it speaks volume of the contributions that we've made to the AHL this season. And I think it's an award for us on its own to be given this honor to host the show.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't argue. It is a great opportunity for the show, for the league. It's great, and it just kind of shows you how well we have done here at the LG Wheelhouse. Not to toot our own horns, but I mean, toot, motherfuckers. We put a lot of work into it, and we love the feedback. The feedback's great. So, I mean, this just cherry on top, right? Cherry on top.
And since we can't go homer on our own teams anymore, we'll just go homer on our show.
Right? Well, I've been doing that since after the first week of playoffs. Since we didn't have a show before the first week of playoffs, we couldn't talk anything good about the Penguins in the playoffs. Colonel.
I think it's great that we're getting the opportunity to host the award show. I guess it just shows that we're kind of like here to stay in the AHL, and we've pretty much been a premier radio show this season, and we've, like the boys have said, we've put a lot of work into it, and it's really exciting for all of us to be able to participate in something like this and just keep giving back to the community. So, like I said, I'm pumped. Toot the horn, Mike.
Toot, motherfuckers. Toot. All right. So anyway, speaking of awards, we have a question live via tweet. I know the show isn't live, but right now I've got a question. This one comes from By Mercy and Grace. If somehow Leprechaun blows the fuck up or something, I don't know. Leprechaun were to get disqualified from the AHL Vezina consideration, who would it go to? Hutch.
Personally, I think that I would have to go with Winston Payne, of course, goaltender of the Springfield Falcons, and he was the AGM as well. He was 23-11-2 in the regular season with a .786 save percentage and a 2.90 goals against average. He played in that strong Eastern Northeast. That's, in my opinion, I still think that was the best division all season. And, to come out with those type of numbers, I think that, he's had to play phenomenal. He carried the goaltending bulk of that team on his shoulders. And personally, I don't think there's any disputing that he may even get it. I don't know if Leprechaun is a shoo-in or not. I mean, you have to take into account, the strength of the schedule and all this kind of stuff. So, I'm not necessarily counting Winston out of the race, but I guess according to the question, if Leprechaun somehow disappears or didn't exist, I think that my choice for the AHL Vezina would be Winston Payne from Springfield.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, is Leprechaun a shoo-in? I mean, you just said that you don't think he is.
Yeah,
but,
and like I said, I think you had to take strength of schedule into consideration here. Personally, I don't think that the Western Conference was as strong as the Eastern Conference, so, maybe a lot of the wins that Leprechaun did get were maybe, easier than some of the wins that Winston got, or maybe some of the losses that Winston got may have been wins against some of the Western teams. Like, we don't really know that. So, I mean, I guess it comes down to the award committee and the kind of criteria that they look at when giving out these awards. But, I think that Winston should be given strong consideration when looking at these awards.
Now, Colonel, same question. Is Leprechaun a shoo-in?
I mean, I guess nobody's really a shoo-in, but if you're going by stats alone, Leprechaun's save percentage is really, it just shines through 21 games. He's got 85.2%, he's stopping, and he's got a 2.24 goals against average. Now, he didn't get any shutouts all season through that many games, which is kind of surprising at his high save percentage. I guess it's like a volume of shots, and I mean, OKC were known as a defensive kind of lockdown type team, so he probably benefited from a good team. And like Hutch was saying, strength of schedule is really important when you're trying to determine, which goalie really was the MVP out of all of them. And there's so many good goalies here. If you want to get to who would win the Vezina if Leprechaun didn't, which, like Hutch says, is not really the case. And I guess I'll just go right into that. My pick would be Rochester's goalie, Lucky Irish 33. He played 33 games, which is quite a lot for a short season. He went 24-9, which is a really good record. His save percentage was a little bit lower, but I mean, with Rochester's offense, that probably helped his record a little bit. But I still think they're such a high, pace team that scores a lot of goals. You got to have a good goalie sometimes just to keep in those games. And Rochester did really well. They finished just behind OKC in the regular season. So I think they've got to thank their goaltending as well for actually getting the wins on the board and not just putting goals from that.
All right, well, I mean, I'm gonna say the same thing. I mean, Leprechaun, no, is he a shoo-in? No, but you can ignore the stats. 15-5 record. I mean, and the save percentage and goals against average is just outstanding. Yes, he did not have any shutouts, but still, the goals against average and not have any shutouts, that's pretty. That seems like consistency to me, which is what you want in a goaltender. And it's not going to take. We're not going to take away from the Western Division. I mean, they produced Rochester, who is just blowing through the playoffs right now, which we'll get into later. But if I'm going to pick somebody other than Leprechaun, now I'm not going to pick this person, but I think he should be mentioned. Brodeur. I mean, his Leprechaun's, other half there, Brodeur, is 16-4. I mean, he had an even better record than Leprechaun, played in one less game. And he still posted a 78.8 save percentage with a 2.7 goals against average. I mean, that's pretty outstanding. And he had 2 shutouts. Like I said, I'm not going with him. The person I'm going with also comes from the East, and it comes from my division. And the team I have been picking since day one, Norfolk Admirals, gray without R. Now, his record, 12-7, isn't as good as Leprechaun or Brodeur, but he played in the East. 12-7 was his record, and his save percentage is 79.7 with a 2.11 goals against average. That's better than Leprechaun's goals against average. Now, the save percentage is just way off. But, and can we just call him gay? Can we? I mean, gray without R, we know what he's going for there. All right, no, I digress. 19 games, 12-7. That's my pick. Gray without R, playing in the Eastern Division. If we're going to go by what Hutch is saying and taking the strength of schedule into consideration, that would be my pick. Moving on, we got other questions. We got one from Wong. We have 2 from Wonger. We'll answer one since we got the Syracuse guys here. What did Syracuse do wrong, or what did Norfolk do right to win the series? I'm going to let you guys handle this. All right, Hutch.
I think there's a number of factors to look into when you talk about the Norfolk and Syracuse series. I think that, a big factor for us was Galley pretty well not showing up for us. I mean, he kind of been doing this all playoffs long, and to us, it was really hard to recover, because, all season long we had Galley and Wizard of Osgood, and they were rock solid for us, right? And I mean, to come into the playoffs and for all intents and purposes lose our number one goalie, who's had some of the best numbers all season long, and just him not showing up to these very important games, I don't think there's any way to replace someone like that. And I mean, Wiz certainly stood on his head in the games he played, and I mean, there's nothing bad against Wiz, but I mean, having these two goalies, if Galley did show up, I think it would have made a lot of difference in the series. Now, with that being said, we did have a couple ECU goalies come in, and they played great for us, and kudos to them for coming in and helping us out in a rough situation, but that was certainly a key factor in the series. And I think number two comes down to availability. Unfortunately, due to some poor availability this week, we were unable to line match in the situations that we could line match. In each of the home games, we were pretty well stuck with only one line that we could put out there. So regardless of what Norfolk put out, we had to go with a certain line. So it would have been nice to have that type of flexibility, but with the summer season, it always seems like availability becomes an issue. But I'm not going to make up excuses. Norfolk came out and they played a great series and they beat us fair and square. It went to Game 7. Norfolk won Game 6 and Game 7 by a score of 3-2. So, they won fair and square. And I mean, all I can say is, respect to Norfolk for coming out and, playing a good, respectful, hard series. And, those are probably the two reasons where we went wrong. But, I don't think that in any way takes away from what Norfolk done.
All right, and Colonel, same question.
It's a good. It was a really good challenge for both teams. I think this series went the distance like we thought it would, and I think Norfolk deserves a lot of credit for building their team as powerful as they did. Throughout the lineup, they really didn't seem to have any weaknesses, and we did. We had a few things we couldn't help with availability. I mean, you can't. The worst thing about LG is the availability sometimes comes down to decide a playoff series. And, I mean, it's happened to me before. When I was in Syracuse in Season 19, we had the same exact issue where there were just the format of the playoffs, like the one game per day, Sunday and Monday, is really killer if most of your availability is on Sunday and Monday. So it's really difficult to line match in the first two games, and you kind of like lose your home ice advantage because of it, because that's really the only benefit you get. So I'm not trying to use that as an excuse or anything for losing the series. Like Hutch said, Norfolk won that fair and square, and it was a really great series. It came down to the last goal. I enjoyed playing my games, even though they were 5-0 blowouts. I mean, it was really all you can do sometimes. We were playing with a deep pair. One game we weren't really comfortable with, and the second game I had to switch to left wing because we didn't have availability for our other winger on our line. So you kind of take one for the team there and hope to go out and win it. But it's that's what happens sometimes. You win some, you lose some. So good luck to Norfolk against Rochester now in the finals, and that's pretty much all I got to say about it. It was a really great, hard-fought series. The 3-2 final in Game 7 is, you can't get much closer than that.
All right. Well, why don't we jump into it? I do have another question from Wonger, but we'll ask that later. Let's just jump into that series. I mean, is there anything else you guys want to say about that series?
Well, I mean, like I said, you look at the series, it was 1 versus 2 in the Eastern Conference, and as I mentioned in the previous show, these two teams were tied in points heading into the playoffs. Syracuse was given the slight edge due to that extra win in the regular season, but for all intents and purposes, this was, the matchup of the playoffs, in my opinion. You had these two powerhouses from the East going, toe-to-toe. Norfolk squeaks out this 4-3 series victory. It's very close throughout. They only outscored Syracuse 21-18. And like I said before, Syracuse was winning the series 3-2. Norfolk came back and won Game 6 and 7 by a score of 3-2. But a very interesting point in this series is the fact that there was no Galley and there was no Gray without R. Of course, Gray without R appeared in Game 1 of the series, then went on to rage quit from the game and put himself on IR. So, the series basically came down to Wizard of Osgood versus JF Lucan, which I actually referred to in last week's episode that, this would be the matchup to watch. So, I think that all in all, this was a great series, back and forth. Nothing but respect for Norfolk. I think they played a great series, and I think the series could have easily went either way. Unfortunately, we get eliminated, but I think that Norfolk will go on to give Rochester, quite the battle, and I think that either of those teams can win as well. But, at the end of the day, I'd like to be able to say that we lost to the best team, but, I think Rochester has a great team as well, so that'll be interesting to see, but I guess we'll do a preview of that later in the show.
Colonel.
It was a really great series for sure. You got 1 versus 2, like Hutch said, and it's going to be close no matter what. Our records were almost identical. We knew it would be, a good, tough, hard-fought series, and I always assumed it would go to distance. Usually that's the way things work out in series like this, where you got 2 top teams. These teams were built not to have holes in them, right? Yeah, sometimes in your third one you've got a little bit of a weakness here or there, but for the most part, these teams all season long and through the playoffs were rock steady. The goalies thing was really interesting to me. It's just the fact that we've had issues all playoffs with Galley not showing up for his games. But Gray without R literally rage quit in the first game, so that was kind of interesting for him to quit on his team so quick as that. I'm pretty sure it was like 5-0 in game 1 for us at that point, and he raged out of the game pretty obviously, and he just he didn't want to play anymore, I guess. Even though Norfolk ends up winning the series, they may have even had a better chance if he had stuck around. But, JF Lucan led the way for them, and he really came up big. Ozzy came up big for us. He played great. You can't take that away from the goalies. I think both goalies played really well in this series. There were some turds that went in, but, EA happens, so sometimes bad goals going in on both teams. Still fought to the bitter end, and like I said, just good luck to Norfolk the rest of the way. You'd like to say you lose to the champions, so I guess I'm rooting for Norfolk in the Calder Cup Finals.
Right. I love the fact that this game came down to 7, and I believe I called it, didn't I? I said Norfolk in 7.
Yep, that was your prediction. Yeah.
I believe I said that. So for those of you following at home, it was a great series. I wish I could have watched it. It's one of those, can't wait until we go to the Xbox One. More people will be twitching. But anyway, moving on, we'll talk about the OKC Rochester series. Now, I do have a question from Longer about the series, so we'll start with that. Were you shocked that Rochester swept OKC? Colonel, you want to start us?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's kind of shocking from like a statistical standpoint, because you look at the teams on paper, and Rochester's got the offense, OKC's got the defense, but that really didn't work out for OKC in this instance. Now, I never watched much, if any. I'm not sure. I might have saw part of one game on Twitch, but I didn't really pay attention to their series because we were busy with our own. Sometimes weird stuff happens. Now, I don't know if it was an availability issue, or if OKC's players just kind of lost interest, or if you really don't know what's going on behind the scenes in the locker room. So yeah, from a paper standpoint, it's definitely a shocker to see Rochester sweep them. You figured they'd get at least one game, and I'm not sure if Leprechaun actually showed up. I don't know if he actually made it to his games, because I remember looking on the app and seeing that Snoopy had Leprechaun and a different ECU goalie confirmed multiple times, different games. So if he didn't show up and that was the backbone of their team, then no, it doesn't surprise me as much. But with him in the cage, yeah, it kind of surprises me that they beat him so handily.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I was completely shocked that this went 4 games, 4 and out. I don't know what happened to OKC. I'm sure we'll find out. If you look below, I'm sure Snoopy will say something. But yeah, I'm completely surprised this went 4 and out. Hutch.
I'm gonna say I'm not shocked at all. In last week's predictions, I really wanted to say Rochester in 5, but I actually went back and switched it because I thought Leprechaun would at least steal OKC 2 games. But given the fact that he didn't play at all, I'm not at all shocked. I mean, of course, Broder is a great goalie, but, I'm not shocked that they lost in 4 games. Just looking at it, Rochester outscored them 21-9. In each game, Rochester scored 5 or more goals. So, I mean, if you're giving up 5 goals each game, you're not going to win. And, I mean, looking back in 4 games, Rochester had 56 shots on net. And, I mean, you got Broder, he only played once. Leprechaun didn't play at all. So, I mean, in 4 of those 3 games, there was an ECU goalie. So, looking at all the factors here, I'm not surprised at all. And, like I said, I wanted to say 4 games to 1 last week for my prediction, but I did go with 4 games to 2, given the fact that I thought Leprechaun would at least steal those guys 2 games. But no, to answer your question, I'm not shocked.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about the series itself. Hutch, you want to start us off?
Well, I mean, I can't really say much else than what I've already said. Like the East, it was a 1 versus 2 series. It should have been a lot closer than it was, but, I'm not shocked, like you said. 4 games to nothing. I listed all the stats already. I mean, it just seemed like Oklahoma City was clearly outmatched by Rochester. It didn't seem like they could do much offensively, and, of course, goaltending seemed to be questionable at best for them. I'm not sure. I didn't see any of the games. Maybe it was defensive breakdowns, but when you're allowing at least 5 goals a game, something's up. So, that's all I can say about the series.
All right, Colonel, you got anything else to say about it?
Yeah, I'll kind of just allude to what Hutch said earlier. That it should have been a lot closer than it was. Like you said, I mean, you see these teams on paper, and sometimes when it comes to the playoffs and just certain weeks in the season even, stuff like goes down you can't control. As a manager, I mean, Snoopy was definitely counting on Leprechaun to be there and be his backbone, but obviously something went on where Leprechaun couldn't make it, or he got pissed off and didn't want to play. I mean, you can just speculate on what happened. We wouldn't know unless Snoopy answers us in the chat box below the video or something, but it doesn't surprise me that Rochester won so handily if they didn't have Leprechaun, because really, when you're looking at your training camp, a lot of GMs don't have some of them got really great players on their training camp from random assignments throughout the season or whatnot. But this summer, I mean, there wasn't really any big names. There were no Land Mirandos like landing in training camp or signing up late and landing on your training camp for free agent Friday. There were some players. Some people got lucky, but really the crop was really. I mean, it's summer season. You're not going to get everyone signing up. So if you've got to rely on your training camp goalies, I mean, against Rochester, who's got a really potent offense, they're probably the hottest offense right now in the league. What are you supposed to do if every shot's going in? Or I mean, you can't blame the ECU. It was great that they even had someone show up, so it wasn't a bunch of forfeits. But at the end of the day, like knowing what we know, I can say it doesn't really surprise me. So that's pretty much all you can say about that series, I think.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about round 3. Colonel.
Okay, my shocker is definitely OKC just getting swept. I mean, at this point in the game with 1-2 versus 1-2 in each conference, you just look at it and you just don't see one team being so aggressive over the other and just not getting any wins at all. Like, that's terrible. It would be unacceptable for me as a GM to see my team get swept, in the playoffs. I mean, it almost happened to me once against Binghamton in season 19, but we at least got one. It's tough, and I'm not blaming Snoopy at all. Sometimes shit happens to one of the GMs, but it was just shocking to see it go one way so quick when our series went the distance. We figured both series would go at least like 6 games. At least I did. And, it's just shocking to look over and see them swept and out of the playoffs, especially when OKC, like your President's Trophy winner, who's been doing pretty well in the playoffs so far, just to get manhandled like that, it's definitely shocking. So that's what's my shocker.
I'm going to go along the same line, but my shocker is Leprechaun not showing up for the Western Conference Finals. To me, that's shocking. Arguably, because we had this conversation earlier, arguably the best goaltender in the AHL does not show up for the Western Conference Finals against a tough team like Rochester. To me, that is completely shocking. Hutch?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see much else to talk about besides the OKC goaltending situation, you know. Like we said, Leprechaun was completely MIA for this week once again. I was really shocked, though, to see that Broder only played one of the 4 games. Maybe it was an availability issue, I'm not entirely sure. But, you know, they used 3 ECU goalies, and I mean, when you look at the Western final, or the final of any conference for that matter, you know, you're not going to win based on ECUs. I mean, unless you have some kind of mega guy who was a GM in the CHL just magically on your TC that you can call up, you know, what are you supposed to do, really? I mean, you know, ECUs at this point in time aren't going to do the job. You know, you have to have your guys in there playing these games. Unfortunately, with the summer season, that sometimes comes down to availability, and maybe that was the factor with Broder. I don't know. But, you know, Leprechaun missing in action after claiming earlier in a post, I'm not sure if it was a Wheelhouse thing or if it may have been a prediction thread, but, you know, he claimed that he was coming back, he was back, and, you know, it wasn't going to be an issue anymore, and then once again, he just disappears. So, you know, in this kind of situation, I don't know why they just don't take the common courtesy to put themselves on IR. Even Galley in our situation, you know, why don't they just, you know, say, I'm not going to be around, I'll go on IR so you can call up someone to replace me. That kind of thing really bothers me. And I think that GMs should be given more power in that situation to say, listen, you know, this guy is non-responsive. We don't want to ban him because obviously he's a great player and it may just be a simple misunderstanding. But, you know, GMs should be able to put guys on IR. Now, I know that can be abused easily, but, you know, under certain circumstances, you know, like Snoopy is not just going to say, I want to put Leprechaun on IR. You know, that's their best goalie. So if he's requesting that kind of thing, obviously, you know, something's going on. And, you know, in that type of situation, I think that the GM should be given some type of leeway here. But, you know, I don't make the rules, and I probably don't make the rules for a reason. So, you know, in terms of round 3 shockers, it's definitely been the OKC goaltending situation.
All right, and the last we're going to mention about round 3, we're going to talk about round 3 MVPs. Hutch, you want to start us out?
So I think we'll go to the Eastern Conference Final, and I think the round 3 MVP is J.F. Lucan. Of course, goaltender for the Norfolk Admirals. He was 4-1 versus Syracuse, so he had all of the Norfolk victories. In this series alone, he had a .850 save percentage and a 1.80 goals against. He had 2 shutouts in the series. He was the winning goalie of both games 6 and 7, and he was absolutely soaring in the absence of Gray without error. So I think that is my round 3 MVP.
All right, Colonel.
My round 3 MVP is going to be Rochester's goalie, Lucky Irish 33. I know it's not really that he carried Rochester to victory, but he really held his own, and he managed to outduel OKC's Broder and their ECUs, which is, at the end of the day, is what you got to do. And I'd pick multiple MVPs if I could, because I think there were a lot of people who stood out in both series. Well, I think our MVP for our team was Ozzy, because just the fact that we had him alone allowed us to take the series to the distance. If we didn't have Wizard of Osgood on our roster, we would have been screwed with a capital S. We still had to use TC goalies, and I really want to thank them because they played awesome. A91 Tavares and Pillow Pants as we needed them throughout the playoffs. I'll give a shout out to those guys because the games they played, I'm pretty sure they won, and I'm not sure they might have lost one, but they really did awesome. And hats off to them for saving our asses during the playoffs, because we wouldn't have got as far as we did because of the galley meltdown. And so I really would pick those guys. A lot of goaltenders, but yeah, I'll share it with those guys for sure. My Syracuse goalies, thanks for stepping up and saving our playoff run, at least for now.
All right. I'm going to go a completely different direction. You guys both went goaltending. I'm going to go with some offense. I'm going to pick 4 people here, 2 from each division winner. All right. I'm going to start with Norfolk, and I transitions in Wonger. I transitioned, passing the puck, get 9 assists in that series with 1 goal. So that's 10 points for those keeping score at home. Wonger, 7 points, 6 goals, 1 assist against a tough Syracuse defense and goaltending. I mean, yes, Galley didn't show up, but with Tavares and Wizard of Osgood doing the goaltending that they are, that is pretty impressive, getting 6 goals in a series. On the flip side, we're going to go with the Rochester Americans. Hot wing, LOL. 10 points, 6 goals, 4 assists, and Army of One with 9 points, 6 goals, 3 assists. So those are my MVPs. Since nobody wanted to bring up any offense, I will.
And I'll make a comment too, just before we move on. You said Wonger is an MVP. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but he actually had a hat trick in Game 7. So, that's pretty big when it comes to a Game 7. If you can go out there and score a hat trick and win a game, but score 3-2, you're doing something right. So I think that was a great pick for you by saying Wonger for MVP. And of course, iTransitions is right there along with him. They played a tough series against us in Syracuse, and I think that you were definitely right in giving those two guys props.
All right, moving on. We're going to talk about the series that is upcoming, and I say this every week, but this is the match of the year because it is the Calder Cup final. We are talking about Norfolk versus Rochester. Hutch, go.
Well, it's number 2 in the West versus number 2 in the East. We'll look at the season series. There was only one meeting, and it appears as though Norfolk won the game 1-0. But on a bit of research here, we actually see that Rochester won the game 3-2. Apparently, Rochester used an illegal substitution of a roster player rather than an ECU after the disconnection timer period expired, I guess. So anyway, Rochester did beat Norfolk 3-2, but the game was overturned. So you're not going to pull anything on Wonger and iTransitions. They know the rule book. You got to play fair game against those, and rightfully so. You should be playing fair games. As a GM, and being in management myself in the past, I read the rule book. I studied the rule book. I made sure that I knew all the game time procedures, all this kind of stuff. So if I ever got in the situation or anyone on my team was in this situation, they could easily look up and say, Hutch, what's going on here? What do I need to do? What can I do? What can't I do? And you say, well, listen, is the timer expired or whatnot? What time is it? You can't put that player in right now because that's against the rules. You need to know this kind of stuff. So, it's regular season. People try to pull the wool over someone's eyes sometimes, and maybe, the management was not overly familiar with the rule at the time. But, in the playoffs, it's something that they're really going to have to watch for because you're not going to fool Wonger and Transitions. They know the rule book, and they have Jay Rules as their owner. He knows the rules. He's going to be watching stuff closely. He's very invested in this Calder Cup run as his team is going for a Stanley Cup run. And, another interesting thing is we have Norfolk and Rochester here in the AHL. Up in the NHL, we have Anaheim and Buffalo. So, it's quite remarkable to see NHL teams go at both of their AHL affiliates battling out in the finals. I don't know if there's anything we've ever seen in LG before, but clearly, as I said, Jay Rules is very invested in this Norfolk team as well. So, you're going to have a lot of eyes on the series. So, things have to go as they should, or, it's going to get picked up on. In terms of a prediction, I personally think that Norfolk wins this series, and I'm going to say that they win it 4-3, so that's Norfolk in 7 games for me.
All right. Colonel.
This is definitely an interesting matchup, but man, there's something about those second seeds, I tell you. The year I won the Memorial Cup when I was in Drummondville in the CHL, we finished in second place. I think we were maybe like 1 or 2 points behind. It came down to the last day of the season. We were sitting in first, and then all of a sudden, whatever team it was, I can't remember. It might have been Hamilton's. What were they? The Acadie Bathurst Titan.
Yeah.
I think they pulled ahead of us by 1 point. And anyway, we finished in seconds, and we went on to win the Memorial Cup. And you see these 2 seeds here again. It's kind of remarkable to me because it seems like the first place or the President's Trophy is almost like it curses you, man. I won the President's Cup in AHL the next season in season 19, and we got put out in the second round. And then you see, we finished first, and so did OKC. They also were the champions of their regular season in the conference. and here both of us are sitting, we're playing golf. So it's kind of weird that, the second seed seems to prevail. So this is the battle of the deuces. I really don't know which way the series is going to go because you don't know the availability of the players. You don't know whether the GMs are going to go to line match as they want to. But I still anticipate this being a long series. I really don't see a sweep on either side. I would be amazed to see either of these teams not get a win. I think it's going to go to 7. I think it's going to go the distance, and I'll give it to Norfolk as well, just because I played them. I know they've got a really tough top line. Rochester's top line is good. They're going to have difficulty scoring on Norfolk's top line because they play really well defensively. Norfolk's D-core is solid throughout. They didn't really have any weaknesses. I mean, every game we played, it was tough to score on them. If they've got Fluken playing at the top of his game, then I think he's better than Lucky Irish. So I go to say that Norfolk's going to win it in 7.
I've been on Norfolk this entire playoffs, and that's not going to change. I think that Norfolk is going to sweep Rochester? Absolutely not. Rochester's roster too good. I mean, with Army of One, Hot Wings, Ennis, Lucky Irish, Parise, Pulowski, Hertz, Sim SQ, they're just too good to sweep. But Norfolk has eye transitions longer. Jeff Lucan, I mean, the way he's been playing in the playoffs, he seems to be unstoppable. I'm gonna agree with you guys. Norfolk in 7. All right, and I haven't been wrong much this playoffs. I'm sure we'll go over that in the closing remarks, but I haven't been wrong much. And I'm sure Wonger is hoping that I'm not wrong this time. So we'll move on. Players to watch in this series. 2 teams left. This is it. This is the last week. Potentially Thursday could be the last game of LG in NHL 15 for the AHL. Players to watch in this series. Colonel, go.
For me, I think it's the goaltenders in this series because it's a very big factor in the playoffs here now. I mean, you're going to have Lucky Irish definitely going up against Jay Fluken. Whichever one of these guys can play on top of their game, they could steal a game here or there. And I anticipate since this series is going to go the distance, it's that one game could make or break you for either getting to Game 7 or winning Game 7. It could, be a confidence booster for either one of those guys. So I will go with players to watch, not just one, in both the goaltenders for this Calder Cup final. It's like this is where men are made in this Internet Hockey League, and we're all playing for that virtual cup. So this is, it's crunch time. Pardon the cliche, but you've really got to go out there.
No, it's not crunch time because they got knocked out.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't mean it like our Syracuse crunch. But you're gonna see both these battle it out in the Calder Cup, and one of them could win over the other. I mean, both teams very close. I still think Norfolk will pull it out, but at the same time, you really can't tell. One goalie could steal it for the other team, so it's going to be interesting to watch those guys battle on the ice for sure.
All right, and Hutch?
All right, so I think a player to watch is Galley, 27, from Syracuse. If anyone can see him or find him, please let us know because we're very concerned. Just kidding, anyway. Player to watch for me, I think, is Gray without R in Norfolk. Is he going to come back? Is he going to play this series? Who knows? I think that Norfolk is going to need 2 goalies to beat Rochester. So far in the playoffs, Gray was 3-1. He had a .750 save percentage and a 2.0 goals against average. But the interesting thing to look at here, he's only played twice since round 1. So, his availability seems to be sketchy at best. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm not even sure if he's going to play. Apparently, from what I've heard, that Rage quit in Game 1 of the last series. He said he's not going to play anymore. But I don't know if that's fact or not. I haven't heard this from him in particular. I haven't heard this from a very reliable source, but it's just what I've been hearing, that he's not coming back. But for Norfolk, getting him back will be a great boost. I know that JF Lucan is playing absolutely lights out for them, but just to have that extra guy in there, they can't call it P. Gwynn anymore, who played in the conference finals against us in Syracuse. he's only allowed to be called up once during the playoffs, so he cannot be used as an IR replacement. And we don't even know if Gray is going to go on IR again, so it's another question. So, basically, I think a player to watch is Gray without IR, and the question, of course, is will he return?
It's sad, isn't it, to see this come down to like availability and people not showing up and stuff. You put all this time into the season, and all of a sudden, it's just, well, this guy might not show up, so boom, you're the Calder Cup champions now. Congratulations. You always think, what if you could just have a perfect world where everyone could show up for any game.
Right. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to talk about Hertz and their line. Their line of Hot Wing, Ennis, and Army. They need to show up. All right? Because this is crunch time. It's win or go the fuck home. There's nothing for second place. Am I right? I mean, yes, you get the whole Western Conference champion, blah blah blah. Who cares? Hot Wing, Ennis, and Army need to step up, and they need to win their games. And then their second line of Pulowski, Borko, and Hertz need to step up as well. And I think Ennis is going to be really proud of me for getting those lines right. Anyway, those lines need to step up against Norfolk and win their games. If they can do that, they can take Norfolk out. But I'm still going with Norfolk in 7. So, closing remarks. Hutch.
All right, so just before we close out here today, I'd like to remind everyone once again that the Wheelhouse will be hosting the Season 21's award show after the Calder Cup Finals. As I mentioned before, I'm not entirely sure when we will be getting the results, so I cannot tell you as of right now when this show will be recorded or produced for you guys to listen to. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to both Norfolk and Rochester for winning their respective conferences. Going to the Calder Cup, you need to bring your all. So I expect this to be a good and tough series and interesting. And, I really hope that it's going to be on Twitch. I mean, I'd like to watch a couple of these games for sure. And of course, like I said, good luck to both teams going to the Calder Cup Finals. These LG championships, are few and far between. So, I mean, you need to really take advantage of being in the finals and, having the chance to win the trophy. Maybe it doesn't mean a lot to some people, but I mean, we fight for this all season, so I mean, your efforts really pay off in the finals. So, whichever way that the series ends up going, congratulations to everyone that's made it this far, and congratulations to everyone in the playoffs for that matter. Each team, had to win a lot of games to get into the playoffs, and there was a lot of hard effort among the players and of course the management. So a lot of time was invested into the season. So, I mean, respect to everyone for all the time that they've committed to this league. And, this is the kind of stuff that we need for the league to succeed. So, moving forward, I hope to see a lot more of this stuff. And, of course, whoever wins the Calder Cup, congratulations. And I guess we'll see you guys at the award show.
All right, I want to give a shout out to the sportsmanship going on in the AHL. I mean, even from losing and winning teams, I've seen nothing but, great series, great season, I mean, it's the sportsmanship's been incredible from whether you win or lose. It's great. I mean, am I wrong?
No, absolutely. I think that, you're right on there with the respect and, the sportsmanship. I think that everyone has taken their losses with great respect, and there hasn't been any explosions in the forums yet. I don't know what might happen after the Calder Cup final, but it seems like everyone's had a lot of respect for the people they've lost to. And I mean, after a 7-game series, how can you not respect the person that just beat you? You guys just went to war, and unfortunately you came so close to winning, but it was so close yet so far. But I mean, on Syracuse, everyone had a lot of respect for the guys on Norfolk, and there was a lot of bantering back and forth on the forums, but I mean, deep down, we respect Norfolk, and I'm sure they respect us too. I mean, it was a tight series, and it could have went either way. I mean, even in the West, after getting swept, first thing you see is Snoopy on there, with congratulations for him, and even thanking his team for showing up in the amazing run that they went on. It's just a lot of sportsmanship, and it's great to see in this league, because a lot of the time people get caught up in the chat box on the main page and some of the, we'll say, e-bullies or whatever, and the way that they get on, and just to see this kind of stuff in the forums, it's really great in my opinion. It makes you want to come back, and it makes you want to play more, and it makes you want to contribute more to the league when you see the soft side to everyone, and like the actual people behind the screen, I guess we'll say, rather than the egos going off. It was, like you said, it's great to see all this respect going around, and I don't think that anything bad could ever come out of a good respect forum. And I don't know what else to say, but it's really nice to see this kind of stuff on the forums, because a lot of times everything is not all fluffy and nice, as you all know.
All right, Colonel.
Definitely the sportsmanship has been great to see. Everyone kind of coming together behind the scenes, and after the blood is on the ice and one team's the victor, you always see the other team coming in with class and shaking hands, virtually. I mean, it's always great. We're trying to simulate hockey in real life, and there's a lot of respect in hockey in real life. And even though some people would disagree with me and say that there are a lot of snakes in the community and people who are just trying to get ahead by greasing to win and stuff, I think at the end of the day, you're just we're all human beings on the site trying to have a little bit of fun and enjoy our hobby. And I mean, LG's a great thing that I discovered a year ago, and I've had a lot of fun playing it. And really, the site itself is only as good as the community behind it. So I mean, you gotta thank everyone in the league for participating and doing their best to show up. And even like when stuff looks bleak and you don't think you're going to win, I mean, you still got to go into those games, and sometimes they're a bit of a headache. But if everyone just is patient and stays with the growth of the league, the whole NHL, AHL, CHL structure will get a lot stronger as we move forward to Xbox One. And it's just going to be great to see this league take off, and I think I'll be here for a long time myself before I'm ready to retire, and I'm really excited for the future of LG, and it's driven by our great community, so hats off to everyone. As for closing remarks, that's pretty much all I had to say. I was really in agreement with. I'm glad, Mike, you brought that up about the sportsmanship, because like you said, everyone deserves to be thanked for stuff like that. It's always real nice to see class in our league, for sure.
Yeah, I mean the sportsmanship's great, and it's great to see. You get caught up and you get into it. I mean, that's what we play video games for. I mean, we play video games to get into the games, and that's why we come into leagues is to have that competition, right? And to see the competitiveness, and still, even with the adrenaline pumping and all that, and as soon as the series is over, we've got all of these, great series, great season, blah blah blah, all this stuff going on, and it's just great to see. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of the LG Wheelhouse. From myself, Hutch, and Colonel. LG, have a great night.
Life is tough. That's a given. When you stand up, you're going to be shoved back down. When you're down, you're going to be stepped on. My advice to you doesn't come with a lot of bells and whistles. It's no secret. You'll fall down, you'll stumble, you'll get pushed, you'll land square on your face. But every time that happens, you get back on your feet. You get up just as fast as you can, no matter how many times you need to do it. Remember this: success has been and continues to be defined as getting up one more time than you've been knocked down.